Welcome, everybody. Ryan Unicum here. I'm here with a couple of special guests. I've got Tom Welling, Michael Rosenbaum. How are we this morning, lads?
Great. We're doing a little under the weather, so I'm
Surviving.
trying to pretend that I'm great, but I'm going to do it for you, Ryan.
Now, we've got a new show starting. Tell me about it.
Talkville. It's a podcast. It's a rewatch podcast. It's something we've been wanting to do, Tom and I, for a while. We thought it'd be fun. It's been a long enough time since the show ended that we step back now and we almost feel like fans now watching the show, and we revisit, we critique the show. And there's a lot of fun stuff, Tom.
Yeah, what we do is it's not science mystery theater. We don't watch the show while we talk. We watch it prior to. We take some notes and talking points, which allows fans to call in. They can watch the show themselves, whatever they want, and call in or send quick questions that we can answer that's a part of the show. And it's really fun because it brings up memories that I didn't think I remembered and situations. And, to your point about watching it, it's been so long, I can watch it. If I'm not about to do a Lucifer podcast because I only did that a few years ago and I don't want to watch it. But it's a lot of fun. Mike and I have a great time doing it. Time seems to fly. We end up not even be able to talk about all the stuff that we want to. We have to kind of pick our points because, we could rip apart every scene if we had the time.
And we do rip apart some scenes, but we also have this, it's called a rose and bomb. It's sort of like to see how good the show is, what we thought about the show. If it's 3 roses, it's the best. 2 roses, 1 rose. A heater is right down the middle, so it's like, it was okay. And then there's 1, 2, and 3 bombs. So if it's a real rose and bomb, it means it's the worst it could be. But so we rated every episode. We count deaths, we count saves. It's just going to be a lot of fun. I mean, we've already recorded a couple episodes. We air Wednesday, July 13th. We're really excited about it. It's going to be great. It's going
to we have cast members that pop on for a little while. We're going to get more, obviously, guest stars even. Maybe Amy Adams was a big going on to big star. It'd be great to have her on for a little bit to talk about her experience. So we're excited, and the show will evolve as we go, but fan participation is a big part of it. And it's pretty funny because Mike and I both see the episodes a little differently sometimes. He's a little bit harder on the episodes than I am at times. And it's a fun game. The
fandom seems to, really be eating it up. Is the response like to the announcement? Is this sort of like the level that you expected when you guys finally decided that you were going to do it?
Well, we'll know once it airs. We'll know how many people really are tuning in. But we're hoping that a lot of people gravitate towards it. We've heard so many stories about how they grew up with Smallville and people are rewatching it all the time. It's now airing on Hulu again. The Blu-ray 20th anniversary just came out. So it's the perfect time for us all to rewatch the show together, go over each episode. And we hope that, there's a big turnout.
So, Tom, you mentioned that it's sort of like, there's things that you thought you remembered a specific way that sort of it surprised you rewatching it. Do you guys feel like there's sort of enough distance from it now? Like, is that a big part of why it's like I feel comfortable to sit down now and like rewatch my work?
Yeah, and in some ways, it's been so long. It's been 21 years since the pilot came out. Crazy. I feel like I'm watching a different actor or a different person. But then there's also moments where it's like, what? Why'd you do that? Michael definitely does that with Lex. And there's just little things like there's an episode where Clark is trying to, impress Lana, and somehow Lex knows this and gives him Coldplay tickets. And I forgot about that scene. And the scene is so cute and like so sweet. And just like, hey, take these tickets. Trust me. And Clark's like, thanks. And like runs off. And I'm just like, that's hilarious. I mean, I don't remember doing that, but that was a good scene.
It's fun to go back and sort of, after like a lot of the episodes, I didn't watch all the episodes. So I'm seeing them for the first time. And it's cool. It's different. There's been moments where I get a little emotional. Where I'm like, oh my gosh, that's pretty cool. Or, the music's great. The effects were at their time, they were the best effects out there. So it's sort of just enjoying it, letting things go and sort of sitting back and just appreciating it a little more.
Yeah, so revisiting after that amount of time, like based on what you can remember from being part of the show, is there things coming up in this first season that you're really looking forward to revisiting? And on the opposite end of that, is there things that you're really not looking forward to revisiting?
For me, if somebody were to say to me, tell me everything you know about the first season, I could, there's a handful of things that I can recall just off the top of my head. But as I watch the episode, I'm like, I remember that day. I remember might have been late that day or something happened that day. It pops up. But many of the episodes, I'm not sure what's going to happen next or how the freak of the week is resolved. So I'm sort of, even though I've seen every episode and a lot of them I gave notes on as a producer, it's still a new show to me to watch.
Yeah, it's weird watching yourself when you were 20. I don't know how old I was, like in my late 20s or something. It was a different time period, and it's like watching yourself and as this character. I don't know. It's weird, but it's cool, and I'm glad people are gravitating towards watching this show and enjoying it with us. But like, it's a trip. It is a trip, and we've got a guy on the show. We've got a guy on the show, Ryan, who sits with us, who's our engineer, who's never seen the show. So he watches it, and Tom, at the end of each episode, we guess what was Ryan's favorite scene. And so far, I'm up 1-0. But it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. What were you gonna say, Tom?
No, it's a lot of fun. You're right. Yeah. I mean, the other thing is, like the constant critiquing of Lex's bald head is like an ongoing theme. I know, because every time Lex comes on the screen, I know there's something inside your head, and you're like checking out, making sure it looks good. Like
makeup, too much makeup. There's the bump in the back of my head.
A bit of PTSD there, is there, Rosie?
Maybe a little.
So for you in particular, Michael, obviously there was a good run of episodes towards the end of the show's run that you weren't part of. Is that something? Because I know that's a huge talking point. Like some of the people that I've spoken about are sort of like, oh shit, like Rosie's actually going to like watch these things. Is there like, what are your expectations of that as someone that was
are you gonna make me watch those by myself on the podcast? Or
no,
are you just gonna be like,
I'm gonna have to watch them. I was in on the series for 3 years, the last 3 years until the final episode of season 10. And I have no idea what happens afterwards. I have no recollection. I didn't watch any of it. And it's all going to be so new to me that I have to sit through them, and I'm not in it. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting.
When Michael comes across the storyline of a red blue blur, he's just going to be like, what? What is it called? No one figured. Red blue blur. He has no idea.
Yeah, you'll see.
That wasn't my favorite sort of theme for a while. But when in a couple seasons of this podcast, you'll have to see
red blue blur.
Yeah, you'll get there. You'll know. I do have to ask though, actually, when you did come back for the show, Rosie, for that appearance in the last episode, and if this is for you as well, Tom, did you approach each other differently in that? Because there's so much story that happens between the last time you'd seen one another. I've always wondered, like, was there a different approach in dynamic for that specific scene?
I mean, between me and Michael, absolutely not. It was just great to have him back. What they did on the show is they would use Lex Luthor, like the back of his head, or an ominous sense that he was still active. And I'm pretty sure Michael had no idea that was going on while he was away from the show. And so Clark, in a way, had a sense. But there's a really big reunion moment that was just a lot of fun. I remember just being so excited you were there.
Yeah, I just remember being excited, being nervous that I was there. I wore a bald cap. It was sort of fast catch up. They kind of told me what was happening because I was completely lost. I had no idea what the hell was going on. And it was just sort of, it was crazy. It was a crazy day. They had me for 24 hours and they worked me 24 hours in that day. And I'm glad I did it, though. I'm glad I did it, but I didn't know what the hell was going on. I kind of winged it.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, coming back to the podcast, obviously, Rosie, you've had great success with the Inside of You podcast, so congratulations on that. I love that show. What do you think it is about this specific format of delivery for fans that hits with people?
Inside of You just it's more relatable to people who are going through mental health issues, anxiety, depression. I interview celebrities. It brings them to our level, these celebrities, and shows that everybody's human, where we all suffer from the same things. But this show, Talkville, I think is really, I think fans are going to just really appreciate it because it's us being vulnerable and open with the fans, and this kind of rapport back and forth of like watching it from a fan's viewpoint, you know, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's just different because we're now watching this with you guys and able to critique it and enjoy it. And, you know, I mean, that's what I think. Tom?
I'm a big fan of, I love movies and I love film, but even more than that, I'm always curious of how they operated, how they got there, how the actor prepared. You know, I love John Wick, but when they show all the behind the scenes of John Wick, I get a little more excited. I'm into that side of it. And what you're going to get here is a bunch of cool stories that you probably never heard before, stories that'll pop into our heads as we just watched the episode. Little things. Sometimes I go on too far with some of these stories and I got to come back because I get off topic, but like I just did. But it's just sort of it's not behind the scenes, but it's behind the curtain a little bit.
Yes. He remembers a lot more than I do. I don't remember as much. You remember sometimes being on set, where you were, what you were thinking, the day you had, the problems that were happening. I don't remember all that stuff, but I wasn't in it like all day. You were there for 12, 14 hours every day. Yeah. So it was different. So it's interesting to hear your perception or like. And
I was sort of, but everything I just said, I was that way on set. I wanted to know how everything operated. Why is this here? What's the problem? Why is the delay? Why was that great? You know, why was this director so awesome to work with? Why was this one not going to be invited back? You know, I just tried to all those. That was sort of my. I feel like I went to school, like film television school for 10 years.
Yeah.
And so I always looked at it.
Yeah, it was a free crash course of, you know, film school, being on set. If you wanted to take advantage of that, if you wanted to know why the camera moves a certain way, what lens they were on, why they're shooting it a certain way. Yeah. If you ask questions, you could end up, you know, directing an episode and taking advantage of being there.
Yeah, I mean, a quick story that came about the other day when we were on it, and this isn't a huge spoiler, but we were talking about, it came up in our conversation that when we would be in prep for episodes of Smallville, the rule was you were not allowed to reference television shows, past or present. You could only reference movies, films. And that to me was something we did earlier collectively that just made sure we elevated everything a little bit.
So now, like you said, you've you know, shot a couple of episodes already, which means obviously you've revisited a few of the early episodes. Is it holding up to your expectation of what you thought the show was back in the day?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's a combination of just a lot of feelings. I mean, I think it was a great show, and watching these episodes and watching the characters and watching how they interact and everything, sort of the cinematography and the music and the effects, it all comes together to create a pleasant viewing experience. And I'm pleasantly surprised. I'm like I said, Tom said, I'm more critical than he is, but I just judge it based on, is this a good episode? Does this stand on its own? Is this a freak of the week? Is this, so I sort of, you know, hammer things a little harder than Tom, but it's fun to be honest and open about them, but I'm enjoying it.
Obviously you guys travel a fair bit, and you're like, you know, we were just talking about, you've been to Australia a lot and all over the world and that kind of thing. Does it ever sort of take you by surprise how massive the show was?
Seeing all the, you know, going, I mean, look, it's been years now, and like we were just in Metropolis, Illinois. We went to Australia, Sydney and Perth, and the crowds are immense. And the fact that people are still loving the show after all these years and revisiting it and rewatching it and being so loyal is just,
can you give this to Mama?
You know, I'm blown away. We're both blown away, and we're so grateful that we still have these fans that are still big fans of Smallville.
Yeah, I think one of the cool things is when we started the show, social media hadn't really blown up yet. And so a lot of the comments and things, they weren't out there. And then as it went on, it became more of a thing. But for me, it was always like being in a submarine and not being able to, like, for 10 months. So I didn't have a chance to experience how big the show was. And then the 2 months that I wasn't working, I would kind of disappear anyway. But now that we're out doing conventions and things, you realize that people would watch it with their parents who may not be around anymore, or now they're showing it to their kids. It's a multi-generational show. And John Schneider, I remember saying that and reminding people that he knew it from the beginning about like keeping the heart and the groundedness, because there's families at home watching the show. And there were a couple times where things got a little maybe too risky or whatever. And John was the one who was like, hey guys, come on. But I think that gave us longevity because so many people would watch it. Like, I make the joke that nobody, there's certain shows you just don't watch with your parents. Smallville was one of them. And I think people could connect. And what always amazes me is how many people were like, we got together because we'd watch Smallville together, and then they
you hear that all the time.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah. They're like, this is my son, Clark, and this is my daughter, Lana. And I'm like, that, never mind. They weren't brother and sister, but that's okay.
I really, really, really appreciate you taking the time to sit down and talk to everyone. Because I know you are always flat out. But yeah, it's just, I'm very excited. I think the fandom's very excited. We love you guys. You're iconic for a reason. Most people I know, love the show and hold both of you in very, very, very high regard. So I really appreciate both of you taking the time to sit down with me this morning.
Thanks, Ryan. Dude, it was a pleasure. It was really enjoyable. I appreciate you waking up at 4 a.m. your time to talk to us.
Not a
Cheers,
problem
Mike.
at all.
Cheers,
yeah. I was gonna say, yeah. If you want to drop an Aussie goodbye, no.
Yeah, I say no.
Yeah, so you've got it. Everyone, I don't know. It's like a TikTok thing. Everyone's like, nee, this weird thing.
It's like we don't have it.
Yeah. All right. Well, feel better, guys, and I hope it's a massive success because I'd love to see, all 10 years worth.
Thank you.